Yes. And before we start with all this, what I've been doing recently, I have a small confession to make. A long time ago, this is all forgiven and forgotten now, I think, I actually built a major web system that were actually used by lots of people, and I built it in PHP. And that's a good technology. Wouldn't have done it otherwise back then. I didn't know anything else. It worked well, but it was so painfully mundane to test. Every time you built something, you had to start your browser, fill out lots of forms, and set you up into a situation where you could actually test the feature you just added. So it wasn't really well tested. I basically relied on users telling me, okay, this thing is broken, can you please fix it? And since then, I know better, but it's a confession I have to make. And to quickly show you the situation I was in, if we skip to a system, this is an example for those who visited Alex's tutorial this week. He also talked about the same system. This is Doodle. I guess all of you know about Doodle, where you can schedule your meetings and events. And this is Doodle. It's an open source clone of that, which you can run on your local machines if you want to. And I picked that as a little demonstration case for this. And imagine you are developing this and you want to test it. You have added a feature. So the first thing you have to do is you have to actually create a new poll in your system, and you need to give it a title. Title of poll. And we create a normal poll. Sorry. And we need to have a few options. And now imagine you have to do this many times. I got tired doing it once. So of course I would like to automate that, and being a QuickCheck user and an Erlang user, I would really like to do that from within Erlang. So there I have my poll created. So if I go back, you can see I have my poll here, which is several options. All basic, but as a matter of fact, this is something we often end up doing. Instead, it would be really nice if I could do something like this. Doing nothing. I hate doing demos. Already started. That's why you shouldn't test your demonstrations. So, I'm creating a poll, I'm filling out the forms, and there I have my poll. I can go on, I can start playing with it, and I can do my test from there. I can script it. So this is what I wanted to achieve. I will come back to more exactly what we'll do, but I will turn to the presentation, but that's the thing I'm trying to create. Give me my slides, please. Thanks. So, but before that, I will tell you briefly who am I and why am I here. Rickard said I was started back in 2003, just after I did this web system, by the way. I started my PhD. And it was highly theoretical. I was proving program correctness. And I happened to stumble upon Erlang, actually by coincidence. Thomas had written a piece of software which had the right size and the right complexity and the right number of bugs. And I took that, took it apart, studied it for 3 years, and wrote my thesis about it. However, something that constantly bit me during those years was that reality is a problem. There are lots and lots of nice theoretical papers describing algorithms. And every time you try to take one of these papers and implement the algorithm, there's always something in your real situation that doesn't match the paper. So no matter how proven correct the algorithm is, your implementation of it has bugs. There's basically no way around it. So I realized that you need actually to test your things as well. And eventually I got my PhD, and the first thing I did after getting my PhD was to get involved in the Prowess project. And it was all about testing, so no more theory improving. We did a little bit of model checking in that testing. We managed to fit that in somehow, but no theory improving at all. After a while, I also got entangled with the guys at Quviq, so after a few years, I decided let's give it a try. So I'm now working full-time for Quviq. I've done so for a year and a half. And just recently, 9 months ago, we started the second generation of the Prowess project called Prowess. And Prowess it's a European Union funded project, and it's about testing web services. The previous Prowess project was more in general, how do you test systems? This is about web services and web systems. So then we got a new challenge. We want to do all of this in QuickCheck, and we want to write our normal properties in QuickCheck, but how can we interact with the browser or with the web service? And the way we thought we would like to do that would preferably be through a web browser, because that's how a normal user would interact with the same system. And it seemed pretty stupid to start doing all of that from scratch. So we tried to look around. I had, as I said before, very limited experience with web testing and web systems. I built that web system back in 2003, and then I handed it over, and I haven't really been in that business since. But we ended up finding Selenium, and I guess anyone who has been doing any web testing knows about this framework. And it's all about automating browsers, which sounds great, because that's exactly what we want to do as well. And they also say what you do with that automation, that's entirely up to you. You can automate your browser, be it for test or for boring administrative stuff, up to you. Selenium is nothing, well, it's a great tool, but it's nothing magic. The thing you can do with it is you can create scripts and you can run them, much like the script I just ran and showed you. Its strength is that it supports a very wide range of different browsers, operating systems, programming languages, etc. So you can run your tests in your favorite browser, more or less. There's support for Chrome, Internet Explorer, Opera, Firefox, and there's partial support for quite a few other browsers as well, among those Safari. And you can run it on your favorite operating system, given that one of your favorite, or given that your favorite operating system is in that list. But if it's not, you might have other problems. You can use a very neat plugin to Firefox to actually record your scripts as well. You can use it as in the old days, a tape recorder. You press record, and you go through a session in your browser, and you can record that, and afterwards you can play it back. So if you have this mundane task like I had to create a poll, I would be a perfect candidate for automation by just recording how do you create a poll, and then you can play it back as many times as you like. There are language bindings for C#, Java, Python, Ruby, and also some partial support for Perl and PHP. And it is really widely used to create web unit tests, and also maybe even more for creating large regression testing suites, which you can run to make sure that you haven't destroyed anything when you develop your systems. Selenium recently, or at least a year and a half ago, I think, came out in version 2. And the big change in version 2 was that they have introduced the WebDriver API. Before, they had more tightly coupled technique where they had a driver for each browser, but now they instead tried to interface with each browser's native support for driving that browser. And the good thing with this is that the browser you're interacting with can be either local or remote, so you can create large grids of test cases if you want to. The whole WebDriver API is just quite a compact object-oriented API. I will show you a little bit about how it looks. And again, there's a wide support for browsers, and there are a few languages implementing native drivers for this as well. Fortunately, no one thought about Erlang here. So what do you do in this case when your preferred language is not in such a list? You look into the technology and see, how can I do this myself? And in this case, we're off at a good pace because the WebDriver drivers all communicate using a RESTful API over HTTP and JSON. I know Clacka had some comments about those, but in this case, this is a case where it's perfect. It's, as you say, we're driving this simplistically, and it's fairly well described as well, so no problems in this case. In total, the protocol supports around 80 different commands, 80 different ways of controlling different aspects of your browser. You can open and close new windows and tabs, depending on what the browser settings are. You can resize the windows, set the position of them, you can maximize them. We can also interact with all the elements of the web pages. You can find them, click them, send data to them, read their values back, you can submit forms, whatnot. You have access to the normal navigation of a browser. You can go back and forward, refresh. You can navigate to a specific URL, and you can get back also the whole page source of the page if you want. You can set the timeouts you need. You can send. You can actually. Oh, I missed that on the slide. You can also send pieces of JavaScript which you want to have executed on in that browser on that page, and you can get the result back. And you can get and set and delete all your cookies. So pretty much, at least what I can envision, I need to do with a web browser. So I went around with a bit of help from Alex as well to implement this in Erlang. I'm a bit sad to say the implementation was not very challenging. It's a RESTful API. There's 80 commands. I needed to program those 80 commands. But that was more boring than challenging. The implementation in full consists of four different modules. One little module to the WebDriver cap, which handles the capabilities of a browser. So when you start a WebDriver session, you can tell it, I want the browser with this characteristics. And the main thing you can give it is you can give the name of the browser you would like to. So if you want to have a Chrome browser, you say, I want the browser named Chrome, or the Chrome browser. On the second layer, we have the WebDriver wire protocol. This is a purely functional implementation of the wire protocol. Each function in there is one command. You have to provide it with all the parameters it needs, and it will return you the result from executing this command in the browser. As I will show you shortly, this gets quickly verbose fairly soon, so we also wrote a little wrapper module, just wrapping it up in a gen server, so that you don't need to keep all the data around and can conveniently convert some types for you. All of this is based on JSON, and some of these functions it's easier to send your raw integers or strings into. And we needed a JSON library. Without any major research, I picked the JSON library written by Tony Garnock. It's open source, and you can get it here. There are other JSON libraries that would have worked just as well. We are not doing any fancy JSON marshalling, so it's anything would do, and I didn't want to write it myself. This would be a very typical, or maybe not so typical because you wouldn't interact with this in this way, but if you were to interact with it using the raw protocol, this is what it would look like. So if we look at the top here, we want to get the status of our WebDriver API. We need to send it some options. The first parameter of all the functions in this API takes the first argument is a record containing all the options we have for this command. In this case, we only need one option, namely where is the WebDriver server we are talking to. And we get back some sort of a structure describing the status and the version we are running of the server. Next thing is the important thing. We want to start sessions. Starting a session means basically starting a browser, which you can interact with. Again, the only options we need is where is the server, which we want to talk to. And we also need to describe what sort of browser do we want to have. And in the WebDriver capabilities module, there are default instances of some of the main browsers. Yep.
On line 78, you're turning that big ID thing, 818, blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
as a binary.
Yep.
And on line 79, you're sending it back as a list.
Yep. That's intentional. It automatically converts between binaries and strings. The JSON library uses binaries for all the strings, and after forgetting about writing it as a binary a few times, I made it accept both. Yeah, maybe you should get your head right rather than being lazy, but I don't know. No, so yes, as you see, you get the session ID back here, and that's the identification string you need to pass on to all successive commands, identifying this session, saying that this is the browser I want to interact with. And then finally we have, second thing, you also get back the capabilities of the browser you actually got. So up here you can describe what capabilities you'd like, and here is what you actually got. So in this case, we got something where you can fiddle with SSL certificates if you want to, but you can't directly connect to the browser, and it's a Chrome browser.
So the port 9515. Do you need to tell Chrome something in order to?
No, that's all built into the Chrome driver, which is the server side of this. So I just I start that server somewhere on my machine or remotely, and it has to run on the port, so it's just the normal.
So it's not the browser that's listening on 95?
No, it has a separate channel, and that's all automatically set up within it. And finally, I also show you how you can actually navigate to a URL, and here you see this gets a bit tricky. You need to pass in both the URL of the server and the session. So this is obviously we need to wrap this in something, because this is not something you want to do. And we can navigate to a page. You just give the page, and here you see I did remember to put it in a binary. It might even be that these parameters you actually have to. The API is a bit fuzzy. Still, that's a lot of typing. You would only do that once, and then you would look at the wrapper instead. We do basically the same thing here. We start a session. The first thing we give to it is a name, which we will then use to identify this session, instead of having this long binary or long string to identify it. We still need to tell it where the server is located, but we only need to tell it once. And again, we need to tell us what browser do we need. And we get back OK and a PID, which is a bit of a giveaway. That's how we wrapped it, of course. We create a gen server, so that's where it's residing. And then we can start interacting with it. We set a URL using the name and the page. And then we can start interacting with that page by finding elements, sending values. Here I'm navigating to Google and try to search for Erlang User Conference. I kept forgetting the exact dates of the conference. I have searched for this more than once. And then we can also submit that form, and it will, if you get back the page title after doing that, you see that we've actually been searching something. Still, that's a bit of typing, and I envision that would you start using this for real, you would build further utility libraries on top of this, where you would compose a couple of these operations into larger units, but we stopped at this level for now at least. This is all on GitHub. I put it there Monday, I think, after having hacked furiously over the weekend to get it finished. I got sidetracked a few times with other projects. It's not a very fancy project. There is a make file, but it doesn't do much more than compiling your stuff and gather it in a directory. If you want to install it in your Erlang environment, you need to copy that library yourself into your Erlang lib. And it's all released under the MIT license, so you're free to do whatever you would like with it. If you like it, if you find some problems and you fix them, I would be really glad if you contributed them back, but you absolutely don't have to. So, that's a bit what I've been doing. Now that's the main announcement. But now I would like to spend a few more minutes to talk about what can we do with this. It's all nice that we can script our browsers, but we already had the Selenium language to do that and the Selenium IDE to do that. So, of course, our angle at this is to be able to write the QuickCheck types of tests for your web services and then interact with them using this library. And I'm not sure everyone has heard about QuickCheck, but QuickCheck is a testing tool originally developed by John Hughes and Koen Klaassen at Chalmers. And it's about property-based testing. So instead of writing concrete test cases for your systems, you write properties. And from those properties, the properties will describe how your system works, and that property will also act as an oracle, test oracle. So you can create many different tests from that property and run them and check that the outcome is the expected one. And the key thing here is that it's all random, but it's controlled. The randomness is controlled by describing quite carefully how you would like to generate your random values. And it also does shrinking, so whenever you start generating random things, it's a good, you have a good chance of generating something that's fairly big before you find your errors. So there is likely to be a bit of noise in your test cases, and we try to shrink that away before presenting the user with the final test case that your software fails on. And QuickCheck is implemented in many languages. Originally it was in Haskell, but since then I've seen implementations in C and Java and Scala, and I think there's something in Python as well. But we do Erlang. So we have a QuickCheck implementation in Erlang, which has expanded quite a lot from the original ideas. Perhaps the main extension is the possibility to do finite state machine testing. But we've also done additions like the user level scheduler, Pulse, where you can use to find race conditions. We can do some symbolic test case generation. Lately we've been adding support for mocking. You can mock directly from your model. You can mock C and Erlang more or less automatically. This is not a mocking framework standalone, but it's together with the tests it works pretty nicely. And we have support for interfacing directly to C code, so you can also test your C code. And we have just lately also added some composable components where you can write state machines as components, which you can later then compose. So of course, my first use of QuickCheck and WebDriver together was to test that implementation I just presented. So I did write something. Of course, I tested with QuickCheck. So to do that, I inserted the normal data generators I needed. I created a few web pages which I knew the content of, so that you could navigate to pages. You could find elements of those pages, and you know whether that data was there or not. And I built a little state for my browser and my pages in order to know exactly what each command was supposed to do. And then all I do is I generate a long sequence of WebDriver commands. I execute them, and I see that the browser doesn't crash, doesn't hang, that the server doesn't hang, and that the replies I get back are the expected ones. During this, I had hit quite a few quirks in my implementation, in the tests, in the server-side implementations, in the Erlang OTP part of the things, and also, no, there were no problems in the browser per se. The browsers themselves were the best behaved components of this. And it's also, of course, then possible to play back a counterexample. If you have a sequence of these WebDriver commands, you can tell QuickCheck to run this sequence again, and you will see in the browser exactly what's happening and when it gets stuck. I did my tests running Linux. I used Chrome, Firefox, and EUnit. EUnit is a headless browser, so it's there for this kind of testing. It's implemented in Java. You can. It is a browser, but you can't see the page. So it has the DOM tree and everything. Yes.
Are you familiar with Phantom.js?
Not too much.
It's a WebKit-based headless browser.
Oh yeah. No, that would be another candidate, I guess, to do the same thing. Yes, and it's very convenient when you run your tests, because starting a browser takes hundreds of milliseconds, and running a test in a headless browser takes milliseconds. So you can run 100 times the more tests, really. So. And you can do other things while you run your tests. That's also why, because when you start running these sorts of tests, there's windows popping all over your screen, which makes the computer unusable for anything else during the tests. So, but that's easily solved just by a second computer, but you can do that as well. I used the drivers which were current 2 weeks ago. I just noted the numbers down here. And as I said, I did find some problems here and there, and I will quickly show you a few of them, because it's a bit interesting to see. My main question nowadays, whenever I see a specification, which this wire protocol is, whenever I see a specification, my first question is, how hard can it be to follow a specification? And the general answer is, it is very hard. No one manages. And in this case, this is almost funny, because the Selenium guys, they are now talking about standardizing WebDriver API. W3C is doing a standardization task on this, and the standard is more or less their implementation. So they've described their implementation, but they got it wrong. In the specification, they say whenever you create a session, you return a 303 see other HTTP response. But they don't. They return a 302 redirection response instead. Okay, the net result is the same. You're going to fetch that page, but if they intended to return a 302, why is 303 in the specification? And in this case, I even think that the specification was written after the code, so yeah. Get it right. Second problem, the previous problem was in the Selenium server. This is in the Chrome driver, which is the Chrome's standalone version of the same thing. Everyone familiar with the HTTP RFC knows that the header fields, they are not case sensitive. The Chrome driver guys doesn't know about that. They were told about it 2 years ago in a bug report. It's the third bug report of that project. They now have a couple of thousands. but they didn't really care, so it's still there. Took me an hour to figure out what was wrong. It worked with Selenium, and I sent the same thing to Chrome, and they just barfed at me. And then I ran into a problem inside the Erlang OTP. I use httpc request because I don't do anything fancy, really, I thought. But it turned out that the automatic redirection was broken. Again, the standard is pretty clear on what you should do whenever you get a request on that which response is a 303 other. You should really do a get on that URL you get back. But in the case of a 303 and the combination with the post, something went wrong. We fixed it, sent the patch. It was included in R16. But that just exposed a problem with how the redirection link was computed. So I had to revert back to my fixed version anyway. Next problem I ran into, whenever you use the Chrome driver, if you maximize your window twice, it hangs. Arguably, it's not a very constructive thing to do. If the window is already maximized, it won't be bigger by maximizing it again. But it's the typical thing that QuickCheck would try. And it's the typical thing that developers get wrong. So it's quite a good showcase for that. I will quickly show you what this looks like in where did my window go? Here. So if I run this test, I have a model of this, and we'll see if we can find the problem. Oh, I hit it immediately. That was maybe not what I intended, but okay. I have my property. I'm now creating lots of sequences, and I have post conditions checking that the return values are the intended ones. In this case, since the backend server actually hangs, I get a timeout. You see it in between the flashing windows. And this is what I said about popping windows up and down. It's not very easy to do anything with your computer right now. Yeah, it's time to get a coffee, and when you get back, you rerun the last trunk counterexample, and you will see exactly what the problem is. We generated a sequence of 16 different commands here, and we're now trying to take away everything that's not really crucial. It should be done soon, I think. We need a demo mode for QuickCheck, where you know how it shrinks. Yep, there it is. Perfect. I just talked long enough and it's done. So eventually it shrinks down to what you could expect. You start a session. In this case, we use Selenium and Chrome. You maximize your window, and you maximize it again, and you get a timeout. So the solution is easy, just don't do it. And it is even the case that in the new version, they've just started, they've just released the beta version of Chrome Driver 2, and they've actually managed to fix this there. So that bug report they actually read. And this, yeah, just showing how I fixed this in my model. I added a precondition saying that, okay, if I've already maximized the window, don't try to do it again if I'm running with Chrome and Selenium. So. And yes, as I said, this is all fixed in Chrome Driver 2. Still then, Chrome Driver 2 also has their problems. This is another of those no sane tester would ever test this. If you open a window, you open a second window, you focus back on the first window and try to take a screenshot, and that fails. If you close the other window in the background, do nothing, it's okay to take the screenshot. If you focus back to the first window, it's okay to take the screenshot. If you close the first window and take a screenshot of the second one, it's also okay. Yep.
Have you sold this to the Selenium guys?
This one is a problem in Chrome driver. I've reported this one, yes.
I mean, the WebDriver kits, you can actually have them testing that. I mean, you haven't.
Yeah, I should tell them. I just finished this a couple of days ago, so I haven't really had time to market it. But that would be a good idea. That means they would need to buy a QuickCheck license as well. So it's a good marketing idea. You're absolutely right. There were some other problems as well. Mostly things which were not implemented in one of them, or in some of the browsers didn't support all of the options. So how do we envision actually using this? What we want to do is to write the standard, the way we usually write tests with state machines, sequences of commands to different systems. And we want to do the same, use the same technology for web services because it's working. So we built this library, and we, as I said, we envision to build more utility libraries on top of it to make some things even simpler, to search for certain kind of elements, to fill out forms automatically, and that kind of things. We also have had some ideas. Alex has been prototyping to integrate this with the Selenium IDE, such that you can record your test cases and translate them directly to EUnit tests if you want to build an Erlang test suite for something which, if you have been doing your web system in Erlang, it's nice to also have some tests which you can run as part of your normal test suite, which includes actually firing up a browser. And during the protest project, we had some interesting research going on where we tried to derive state machines. So writing that QuickCheck state machine is a bit of work, and you need to think a bit. But we did do some research on trying to generate the state machine, or at least a skeleton of the state machine, or at least the first version of that state machine, automatically from your EUnit tests. And I'm looking forward to actually test this more thoroughly on this. I'm not really convinced it's going to work great, but it might give you something you can start from, saving you from doing that first bit of prototyping. So that's what we hope to do. I think that's more or less what I had to tell you. If you want to play with it, this is the place. And as I said, it's yours to do whatever you like with. But if you use it and find some problems with it, please let me know. It would be fun to integrate that back into, to actually have this improve into something that we can actually use. So that would be awesome. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Let's do it organizedly.
Really excellent stuff. I think it will be extremely useful. One question. You used an API towards some server they have?
Selenium has part of the Selenium server has this API, so you can talk to that.
So have you looked into replacing that server and go straight to the browser interfaces, or is it?
That would mean doing different stuff for different browsers, and that sounds
okay. So do you
tricky.
do the integration stuff?
Yeah. So this is I like this. It's one interface to all the browsers.
Okay. I mean, that would be a task, some kind of challenge for you.
That would be a challenge, and it would. You would probably make it more efficient, but I'm not sure it's worth the time because they've done it, yeah, and they are progressing quite rapidly. There's a new browser version every 6 weeks nowadays, and keeping up with that would be hard. So it's better to let someone else do it.
So I got 2 questions. So number 1, so what's your opinion on the Selenium stuff? Is it good or is it bad?
I think it's good, okay. Because they've done, as I said, it works for many different things.
And they're moving forward, and it's alive.
It's alive, yeah. It's very much alive. They've supported when the Firefox version 20, whatever it was, 21
okay. Nice.
Came out. They supported it 4 days later or so.
So question number 2. So what's your quick plan here? Is it to go forward and actually make a product that I mean, so my company, we have exactly these needs. We have a web application and we need to test it. So would we be a typical customer?
I hope so.
Okay.
We have, the problem is we have no experience with testing web services with QuickCheck. We don't know what techniques we should use, but we need this in order to start experimenting.
Okay, so let's talk.
But give us a couple of months and we'll have an answer.
Okay, first customer.
Is it possible with this to, there might be a limitation in the WebDriver, to test with multiple browsers simultaneously? I think you may have mentioned that, so you can have Chrome, IE, and Firefox all running the tests at the same time so that...
No, that would not be a problem. For the demo, I limited this to
Obviously.
one session at a time, but you can have many sessions, and each session can pick its own browser.
Because, I mean, obviously in web development, you sort of have this matrix of Chrome, Firefox, IE, multiple versions of each. Makes you want to pull your hair out and never do web front-end development again.
Yeah, but I can quickly show you this. My generator, for the moment, I've put 0 on all the browsers I didn't want in this case. But normally when I run my test, the first thing that QuickCheck selects is which browser and which driver to use. So when I'm running this test suite, I'm randomly picking a browser, so I'm running all of them.
Do you have any more questions?
As far as I understood, WebDriver is free, open source, and
Yep.
QuickCheck is not.
No.
And from the test, from the driver, I see that you're using pretty much standard QuickCheck, which is equivalent to proper Statum. Any quirks I have to know? I mean, is there a limitation so I can't use it with proper? Anything I didn't notice?
I have no idea. I'd never used proper.
So what do you... Okay, I'll just look at it.
Yeah, no.
Anybody else? All right. Let's thank our speaker.
Thank you.